Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. She's a speaker today. And Jenia, Dr. Jenia has been associated with ICHR with a project, ICHR AHRC, that is Arts and Humanities Research Council Joint Project as Indian lead. Her project is on the Hooghly River of Cultures from Kharagpur to Bandel. So I welcome you, Dr. Jenia Mukherjee, and very pleased to have you and for delivering a lecture today. Dr. Jenia will be speaking on historical urban political ecology, why integrated perspective and praxis matters. I'll take the pleasure of introducing Dr. Jenia briefly. Dr. Jenia research interests spans across environmental history, urban political ecology, and transdisciplinary water research. She completed her PhD on the history of Kolkata canals and wetlands system from Jadavpur University as an ICHR fellow in 2010, investigator of global partnership projects funded by EU, SSRC Canada, like Equip, Vulnerability to Viability, and Dry Fish Matters, and exploring lives and livelihoods in coastal volatile escapes. She is motivated to pursue transdisciplinary and ground-level action research. She is the recipient of Australian Leadership Award, Fellowship 2010 and 2015, World Social Science Fellowship UNESCO 2013, Japan India Transformative Technology Award 2020. Dr. Jenia was awarded the Carson Writing Fellowship 2018-19, Germany, for completing her book Blue Infrastructures, Natural History, Political Ecology, and Urban Development in Kolkata. She remained the Indian lead for the AHRC ICHR funded research project, the Hooghly River of Cultures, from Kharagpur to Bandel. With this, I invite Dr. Jenia to please give her talk. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Singh. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. I would like to offer my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Singh and also Indian Council of Historical Research. And in the course of this presentation, I think I'll be able to make it quite clear that how ICHR has been an instrumental organization in supporting my research since my PhD days, because I was an ICHR fellow when I was doing my PhD from Jadavpur University on the history of canals and wetland systems of Kolkata until date. So it's almost now more than a decade. So it's almost 13 years that ICHR actually is kind of supporting my research. And now it is our research, because now I'm not alone. There are many people. So in the course of this presentation, I think I'll also be able to provide you with an overview of my own empirical research and how this has been done since the last few years under the aegis of the Indian Council of Historical Research. So with this, I would just like to share my screen and start my presentation. Please let me know whether my screen is visible or not. So is my screen visible?
Yes, Dr. Mukherjee.
Okay, thank you. So this is the topic for this presentation. This is historical urban political ecology, which is HUE. And this historical urban political ecology is actually a framework which has evolved again along my empirical research since this last few years. And this is a very dynamic and evolving framework or framing, I would say, because on one hand, it has been informed from empirical insights, and on the other hand, it is still expanding itself. It is getting enriched by more and more, empirical information and insights that I am getting. We are getting and accumulating over time. So I think before laying out this particular framework in front of you, I think I will be interested first to provide a historical overview of our contemporary times. The kind of times that we are actually inhabiting. It's challenging times. These are challenging times, testing times, but at the same time, I think that the contemporary era is also fascinating in terms of its historicity. So by historicity, we actually mean historical authenticity. And what is so historically authentic about this contemporary era is what I believe is the understanding that no one, I think, anymore can deny the very fact that climate change is actually a contemporary reality. Because I think 30 years or even 35 years back, this was a debate that whether the climate is really changing or not, whether we are in the Anthropocene or not. But I think what is so very important so far as this contemporary period is concerned, that this has been historically established that yes, the climate is changing, and yes, we are in a very new, geological epoch, which is the epoch or the era of the Anthropocene. And I think the Pandemocene that we are encountering today is also an outcome of the current amplitude of what I call the period or the era of overlapping scenes. So what is this period of overlapping scenes? CENES. So this is about, the larger understanding of how the three scenes, Anthropocene, Capitalocene, and Urbanocene, they are cross-cutting phenomena. So I'll explain it very quickly a bit. So this is the picture or image of Johann Rockstorm, and he is like a seminal researcher based at the Stockholm Research Institute, Stockholm Resilience Center. And Johann Rockstorm, along with his team of researchers, they talked about the 9 planetary boundaries, and they also developed a model through which they showed in 2009 that how our planet is actually transgressing some of these boundaries. And their final demonstration was that if planet Earth actually kind of transgresses all these 9 planetary boundaries, then definitely our survival in this planet would be at stake. Again, as students of history, as scholars or researchers trained in the methodology of history, I think all of us, it will not be difficult for all of us or any of us who are trained in historical methodologies or, for that matter, allied social sciences methods and methodologies to understand that the Anthropocene is actually not neutral. And by this, I mean that, why the planet is changing today. Because, the Anthropocene or the Pandemocene, these are the symptoms. But what are the root causes? The root causes to a great extent lie in the way the capitalist engine actually performs or functions. So what I'm trying to say is that though climate change is a science, though the scientific part of it is very, very, kind of evident, but at the same time, as social scientists, as historians, we also understand that how socioeconomic, cultural, ecological processes are actually enmeshed, within these larger concepts or within these larger connotations and realities like climate change, like lack of freshwater use, like land use change, like so many other ecological challenges that the planet is encountering today. And finally, the Anthropocene, today's Anthropocene is also about the urban. The urban seems to be the mega reality of the present times. And for example, how can we explain for example, the contemporary infectious disease, the spread of the virus, the COVID, the COVID virus, the COVID COVID-19. So how do we explain COVID-19? So is it just a zoonotic disease? So by zoonosis, scientists mean that how a virus actually gets transmitted from an animal to a human body or to human beings. So, you will find a lot of literature on zoonosis, which explains COVID as a zoonotic disease or a zoonotic crisis. But I think for people who are trained in environmental history and environmental humanities, they know that how the human hand, how human beings to a great extent have actually intervened with and interfered in this mutual symbiosis and harmony with nature. So last year, I, with one of my colleagues, like Amrita Sen from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, we could actually write a piece at the National Concert Center platform, where we try to explain COVID-19 as a capitalism challenge. And we understand that this COVID-19 is also, to a great extent, it is an outcome or a manifestation of the present patterns and nature of urbanization. So previously, the epidemics which were which remained restricted within local areas, within local zones, regional zones. Now what is happening is that these local spillovers are actually now trawling their way through global waves of trade and travel. So one also need to understand that COVID is basically also an outcome of the contemporary patterns and nature of urbanization, which is also kind of explained by urban experts and urban scientists as the urbanocene. So within this context of these overlapping scenes, and with whole lot of emphasis on the urban scale, and with the urban as the mega reality, and also the changing nature between the urban and the environment, I feel that the Hube framework, I mean, to a great extent, is an enabler to understand, to collectively understand whole lot of complex challenges and problems. So first, I think the major training which we receive when we start studying history is that it is more important first to understand complex problems, to identify the several layers that actually, then kind of interact with each other, and then, the challenges kind of start existing. So it is important to capture the multi-layeredness of complexities, also understanding complexities from a long-term temporal point of view. And that is why, this long-term historical understanding remains so very important. If we start understanding a phenomena by just looking into its contemporaneous, equation, the kind of understanding that you will derive from this contemporary research, I think, will be significantly different from the methodology where we try to understand that particular phenomena by kind of deploying a long-term temporal scale in it. So Hube is all about the historical is the most significant, the core element in this particular framework, Hube, because this is historical urban political ecology. So the two major kind of like the two major paradigms or approaches that are there in this framework are history and political ecology. So what happens here is that the environmental history, mainly specifically environmental history, provides long-term temporal scale to political ecological understanding, and political ecological understanding of the urban and the environment also remains very, very important, because through political ecology, a researcher can actually see the different mediations that are enacted among multiple players. So, it's all about the enmeshed equations and dynamics and interrelations and interactions among actors, among, phenomena, among events, eventualities within a very broad spatio-temporal scale. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that urban is the mega reality, and that is why this cross-fertilization between the historical research framework and political ecology approach, I think, gains tremendous significance. So what I will do now is that I will take you through an empirical tour along two case study sites that I could actually conduct research on, again under the aegis of ICHR. So the first case study, or the first empirical site, is Kolkata, which is again kind of over-researched, over-explored area. And Kolkata is so very important as a metropolitan city, and it was the seat of the imperial capital. And Kolkata is also kind of drawing a whole lot of attention from the media and from scientists in terms of climate change, in terms of one of the most vulnerable deltaic cities, which is exposed to different risks, disruptive risks like floods, like groundwater crisis, and several other kind of tangled or entangled challenges and problems. And of course, Kolkata as a mega city is also kind of facing the challenge of what is known as hyperurbanization, or also urban sprawl, with its severe socio-ecological and economic implications. And the second case study is actually the Hooghly corridor. So Dr. Singh actually mentioned about this AHRC ICHR project. So this study on the Hooghly corridor is part of this AHRC ICHR funded project. And this stretch is also very significant. I'll explain why when I get into the details of this particular empirical case study. And what is very important is that, of course, these two sites are actually connected by the river Hooghly. So this is an old map that I've used here. So this is from James Rennell, and you can see, this area is so significant. This is a river. This is the river Hooghly, and all these important towns are on the banks of the river. So from Bandel to Chinsura, which is also known as Chuchura, to Chandannagar, to Srirampur, to Kolkata. So all these, towns and cities, they are connected by this particular river, which provides interlinkage, to these zones of habitation. So coming to the first case study, which is the Kolkata case study, this is again this is the earliest map from the archive on this particular site. So you can see, like, these were not cities, but during that time these were villages, basically the three villages of Sutanoti, Kolkata, and Govindpur. And you can see here, this entire area was actually kind of bounded by this saline or saltwater marshes, because this is actually lower Ganga basin. And if you go downwards, you will face the Sundarbans, and all of us know about Sundarbans. And the recent cyclone Yash has again ravaged the Indian Delta, as it was actually ravaged by several other storms and cyclones which had occurred since the last few years. But anyway, that's a different discussion. But what is more important here now is that, like, when I started looking into the archival records, I found out that, the colonizers, the British colonizers, they were continuously, they were kind of, they were portraying a very negative image about this particular site, and they pointed out that that this site was malarial, it was marshy, swampy, unhygienic, etc. So then the question that I tried to raise from the perspective of environmental history is that, if this site was so unhygienic and why, then why did the British actually wanted this particular site to be developed at the as the seat of imperial capital? So I then started consulting several other reports to kind of validate and cross-validate the prior reports which I consulted before consulting these new reports. So I found out that, it was not a miscalculated step, but rather it was a deliberate strategy on the part of the British colonizers to actually, select this site, which later developed as the colonial capital for many decades, for many years, at least till 1911, when the capital was then shifted to Delhi. But so again, I found out from reports and proceedings, and also extracted and diaries that much before the coming of Job Chanok, actually in 1690, so Job Chanok came here in 1690, but much before Job Chanok came here, in 1650s, the Britishers, they actually employed, the London Court of Committees actually employed a particular person called Joseph Townsend, and he became the pilot of the Ganges, and every day he used to keep track of the various details, minute details about the Hooghly River, for example, its length, depth, sand variation patterns, etc. And all these details he used to send to the London Court of Committee, on the basis of which then after a period of almost like 40 years, 4 decades, they could actually take this decision that, investing in this particular space will actually help them to kind of gain profits. So they could understand that this was a lucrative space of investment. So immediately when this was understood, the British then, kind of transformed this particular space, its natural ecological character, and kind of manufactured and tamed this entire space. And Calcutta's urbanization actually started, and this was done through a number of initiatives, including the excavation of canals and reclamation of marshes, because this is part of the lower Ganga basin, so no dearth of rivers. So rivers, everywhere. So more than 100 tributaries and distributaries of the Ganga River, and these rivers were very properly and appropriately, they were kind of tamed, and they were like, for example, the British, of course, implemented their own knowledge of hydraulics here, and gradually Kolkata grew and expanded as the urban capital of British India. So this map is very, very important, this third map, because for a long period of time, you can see the river here. This is the Vidyadhari River. So this river used to play the role of the outfall channel for the entire city of Calcutta. But after a particular point of time, this river started showing signs of deterioration, and then in 1928, it was declared to be dead. And when it was declared to be dead, then another alternative outfall channel was engineered upon and designed by the British, along with the help of the native engineers. And what happened is that this is very significant in terms of the ecological history of the city. Why? Because like when this river Vidyadhari was kind of, when it became defunct and it was officially declared to be dead, and when this Kulti River was kind of, the Kulti River replaced the river Vidyadhari as the alternative outfall scheme, then there was a major transformation in the ecological regime of these particular, of this particular zone or this particular area, in the form of the change in the nature of the wetlands, because these wetlands now got converted from saline wetlands to freshwater wetlands. And why? Because Vidyadhari used to, as it was connected to the Bay of Bengal, so it used to kind of carry the water of the Bay of Bengal, and this was an undulating, this is still now an undulating region. So the Vidyadhari used to spill over, the saline water, and that is why the this area remained as the saline wetlands or the saltwater lakes. But when the Vidyadhari declined and the Kulti, it was connected to all the other major canals of the city, which carried fresh water, which carried wastewater, and finally disposed the wastewater to Kulti River. But in between, the zamindars and also the local people, with the help of the government, they actually kind of excavated small ponds or fisheries, and they started piscicultural activities. And this is a fascinating area. If you come to Kolkata, you will see this is an area of almost like roughly 254 bheris. These bheris in the local dialect, bheris imply wastewater ponds, and this is the backbone of the city of Kolkata, and this is also known as the natural kidney. Why? Because till date, the city of Kolkata has no separate sewage treatment plan, and it entirely depends on the East Kolkata wetlands for recycling its waste. And per day, this East Kolkata wetlands, it recycles 750 million liters of waste, and in turn produces 22 tons of fish and 150 tons of vegetable, and provides employment to like 2 lakhs people. So you can understand the entire significance, of this particular space. But unfortunately, what we find in the contemporary times is that the heyday of the canals is no more there, and these canals now, they function as like they are no more arteries of trade and communication, but they have they are mere nallas, or they are mere like conduits carrying wastewater, and very ill maintained. They have become extremely degraded. And what happened here is that on the river Adiganga Talis Canal stretch, the metro railway project also came up in the early years of the first decade of the 21st century, and the Adiganga Talis Nala stretch got intervened with 300 pillars. So the river has almost become defunct. So that is again another issue. And same with East Kolkata wetlands, because the city is kind of visualizing this urban sprawl and number of buildings, real estate investments coming up in this eastern part of Kolkata, in the peri-urban interface of Kolkata. And that is why the wetlands have, to a great extent, they have made way to real estate or a concrete land. So I think why the framework that I used, HUB, Historical Urban Political Ecology, is significant, because it helped me to also kind of counter some of the mainstream narratives that are there, which try to explain this displacement, degradation, and encroachment. So generally, in the mainstream narratives, either by the scientists or by the media people, you will find that they actually, try to conceptualize or try to portray the story as a story of conflict, as a story of clash between the state on one hand and the local people on the other. But when I, kind of applied the environmental history perspective and started going through and actually kind of consulted different types of archival sources, from correspondence to extracts to diaries to proceedings, revenue reports, administrative reports, etc., and started kind of validating, cross-validating all these sources to kind of compile information. And then I also did ethnographies, talk to the people. I kind of applied qualitative research methods, including focus group discussions, key informant interviews, case study analysis, etc. So, when I started gathering information from these multiple sources, I could understand, that there are several stories, there are several storylines so far as this entire history is actually concerned. And one important thing is that East Kolkata wetlands, it will not be right to actually understand East Kolkata wetlands by only concentrating into this particular regional zone, but rather it will be scientific and historical to kind of contextualize this particular area within the larger spatial context of which is actually located at the basin scale. So we really need to have a very detailed basin understanding about this riverine scale. So finally, through my research, and later if we have question answer session, I'll be more in a position to kind of explain like the nitty-gritties of this case study. But now I will be quickly moving on because I also need to quickly discuss the other empirical side. So what I would finally argue so far as case study 1 is concerned, that HUB has kind of enabled me to understand that East Kolkata wetlands is actually, it's not a binary story between the developmentally state and the, locally empowered, but misrecognized and non-recognized community actors, but rather it is a messy assemblage of constant interactions across human beings like fishers, canal raiders, bureaucrats, technocrats, activists, and non-human entities or actors, including coliform bacteria, sunshine, algae, water hyacinth, duck, etc. Now the thing is that this is very, very interesting. This paragraph, I think it is very how do I say, it's loaded, and I'll be very happy to take up questions from this particular argument later once the presentation is over. So what I would argue is that I'm also this research is continuing, and I'm also quite influenced by this by an architect from the UK. She's Carlisle. So Carlisle has kind of described East Kolkata wetlands as living systems infrastructure, and I'm applying this with my own historical and social understanding of this particular urban space. So with this, I now move on to the next case study. This particular study actually started as part of our HRC ICHR project, which we started in 2018. So the discussion was going on, I think, since the last part of 2017, and ICHR, of course, gave us the opportunity. The UK research personnel and Indian researchers, they got a chance to meet each other, I think, in a workshop which was conducted in May 2017 as part of ICHR's Cultural Heritage and Urbanization program and workshop series. And of course, like, it was a it was a lively event where we got in touch with researchers from UK, and together, there were people from the University of Liverpool. So University of Liverpool and IIT Kharagpur then together kind of drafted the proposal, and it got funded. So the work started from 2018, and the major aim or the major objective of this project was to finally come up with at least the blueprint of what we call the Hooghly Heritage Management Strategy. And if you go to this site, so the site is there. So if you go to this website, you will find out that it involves many people, multiple stakeholders as well, but mainly academicians coming from different backgrounds, from architecture, from literature and cultural studies, from history, from geography, etc. And so this was a different kind of a project altogether, which was not only confined to the limits of theoretical research, but it had very strong action research components. So of course you can see that through historical analysis, by ethnographic initiatives, by talking to multiple stakeholders, engaging them, and kind of continuously exchanging on different topics, and through the implementation of audiovisual strategies and techniques, we started planning about the co-creation. So this co-creation, this particular word is very, very important. It's not creation, but co-creation. Why co-creation? Because the academicians or no one was they could think themselves as the singular agent in this project. So it provided agency to anyone and everyone who were involved in this particular project. In that particular sense, this project was extremely democratic and inclusive, and we also could start awareing people, so create awareness among the people, among the owner custodians and the students, several other personnel from various age groups who were also inhabitants of this particular stretch or this corridor. And this corridor itself is so very important and significant and fascinating, because I already showed you the previous map. if you see this map, the map in the right hand side, you can see that this is just a small stretch, and this stretch is so rich in history. It has such a strong history of so many settlements, in such as a short regional stretch, including the Portuguese, the Dutch, so Dutch Chinsura, French Chandanagar, then the English settlement in Kolkata, then in between, several other settlements, Portuguese settlement in Bengal. So this stretch is actually known as the mini Europe. And if you ever get the opportunity to visit this site, you will see big palatial buildings, and you just you are in Chandanagar, so you can have the feel of a French town, and then you move upward, you go to Bandel, and you find that you are actually in Portugal. So this really is a fascinating stretch. So the whole idea was then basically how to revive this particular stretch by kind of involving the bureaucrats, the policymakers, the local authorities, the people themselves, the owners of these big palatial buildings, etc. So it was very, very ambitious, I must say, from the very beginning. And of course, it had its transdisciplinary edge, because people coming from various backgrounds, history, geography, architecture, etc., and also different sectors, municipalities and the educational institutes, organizations, etc. So yes, diverse collaborative activities. We were involved in different kinds of collaborative activities, from the river symposium, to meetings and engagements with people from the bureaucracy, from policy circles, then celebrating the Heritage Fest Day, then organizing heritage competition, and then also kind of photo exhibitions and photo essays and narratives, where media, different people from this stretch, and also people from other parts of Bengal, they came and they started exchanging with us. So it was like a whole lot of activities was started happening, in a very small period of time, and in this particular stretch. And our main focus then was actually Chandanagar. So all the activities were mainly happening or occurring at the French Institute of Chandanagar and several other places. And also you can see the kind of outdoor or outreach activities that we organized, including the River Symposium. So yes, a lot of comparisons were made because we also got the opportunity to kind of involve foreign researchers, mainly researchers from UK, who had worked extensively on other comparable heritage towns like Pondicherry and Travancore. So we had like Hele Jorgensen in our team, and Andrew Travis, who discussed, and also of course Intact. So Intact Pondicherry was involved. So where we got the scope to learn from these authorities and from this resource person who told us the ways through which heritage management strategy in the cityscapes of Pondicherry or Travancore actually remained very successful. So and it was like it drew media attention like anything. So everyone became extremely involved in this whole project. We were widely covered by media like Times of India, Telegraph, and also the Intact Hooghly chapter was formed last year. And so the Ministry of Culture, they were also very happy with the progress of the project. So it was like honestly, it was a whole lot of vibrant activities were actually going on, and everyone so each one was actually learning from the other. So finally, but the final thing is that and I will be honest here, it's not that everything went on very smoothly. So the project, as I told at the beginning only, the project was quite ambitious. So I think one of the major constraints of this project was its feasibility component. So I think, at the feasibility scale, the ranking actually was quite low, not very adequate. And we also faced the problem of the plural. So the project, the objectives, sometimes we could understand when we started implementing it, that the objectives had loose ends, and the deliverables that we were being able to meet, sometimes we also face the problem of deviated deliverables, and also sometimes the interests of particular stakeholders became, quite detached from the overall larger rationale or agenda of the project, affecting the project to a great extent, and kind of becoming a constraint for the accomplishment of the larger objective of the project. So finally, what I would like to say is that what could we actually learn in the 2 years between 2018 and 2020 from this ICHR, HRC-ICHR project is that, I think the project is an eye-opener in terms of the fact that it helped us to understand that it's not heritage, but it is actually heritage scapes through which we can have a far better, all-comprehensive understanding of what heritage is actually all about. This project helped us to reimagine and re-ontologize, redefine what is the urban, what is ecological, what is heritage. And I would like to say that again, I would like to thank ICHR, because with ICHR's fund, we could organize a very, again, a vibrant, lively workshop for a period of 2 days at IIT Kharagpur, where we tried to outline, the heritage scape. So we disseminated our research findings, project findings from the Hooghly Corridor project. But apart from that, we also kind of invited people, faculty, invited, very senior scholars, historians, geographers, people from literary studies who work on heritage, who talked about, who demonstrated various case studies discussing about urban riverine heritage scapes. So we could understand that, it is not only about heritage, is not only about, the edifice of tall buildings and palatial dwellings or museums, but it is also about the skills, knowledge systems, and the stories of the boat makers and the potuas, and, the people who inhabit the space. So this is the idea of heritage scapes, which actually, kind of try to help us understand the continuous, the dynamic interactions between, space and people, knowledge and culture in a particular or within a particular spatial context, but again, not limited to that context in terms of both spatiality and temporality. So I think, yes, heritage scapes, we could frame and formulate heritage scapes as a very strong and a comprehensive, robust formulation. And I think heritage scapes is important because it helps us to understand that heritage, it's not a frozen asset, but rather, it's a process. So heritage is also about, living heritage. It is also about the knowledge, the skills, and memories of people. It is about everyday engagements and cultural practices. And we are very lucky. I am very lucky. Our team is very lucky that, that we also get to continuously discuss and involve, people coming from the technology background, and they could make us realize and understand the importance of technology, in this particular project. And technology, not technocracy aided, but technology, kind of catering to social needs and aspirations. And finally, we could also kind of, now we understand heritage as an acronym. And this particular workshop, in this workshop, there was a lot of brainstorming and a lot of discussions. And I must acknowledge, my colleagues like Anuradha Chaudhary and several other people who together came up with this brilliant, coinage about heritage. That heritage is actually historically enriched rational interpretations come interventions using technology-aided grassroots engagements. So maybe I'll just take 2 more minutes to finish my lecture. Finally, coming to the last leg of this presentation about HUPE, why do I think that HUPE is actually kind of an enabling framework, so far as these empirical studies, but not only these empirical studies, but other studies. So I think HUPE is, of course, strong in terms of its scalability. So why HUPE is important? Because of the 3 P's, that are already there in HUBE. So the first P is political, but HUBE is not only about political, but beyond political, but also, political is there. So political is the most important, is not the most important, but one of the most important or significant kind of variables so far as HUBE is concerned. And why this political perspective is so important? Because it helps us to understand, beyond mainstream connotation or mainstream perspectivization of concepts. So it helps us to complicate concepts and understand their correlation. So, for example, through Kolkata's case study, I could understand that, cities, of course, their cities have challenges. Cities are dotted with challenges, but at the same time, cities also offer solutions. So, the relationship between vulnerabilities and resilience is not always linear. It's not always inversely proportional. But, so the main question is whether we would like to consider Kolkata as a flood vulnerable city or as a city which has a whole lot of flood efficacy. But if we use the historical understanding, historical time scale, we will be able to map the various potentials through which we can upscale the initiatives to mainly then concentrate on the flood efficacy component rather than the flood vulnerability component. And also I would say that they are not binaries. They are not binary. So they are, in a complex way, they are embedded concepts. Similarly, again, I would like to say that you help me to understand that, the green, so-called quote unquote green initiatives and green discourses that actually rest upon kind of encroachment and displacement of the marginals. They are at best greenwash, but they do not actually ensure actions that promise and promote urban sustainability. Finally, the political perspective also helped us to understand that heritage is not only about palatial buildings, but it's also about the people. The second P is plural. So again, through HUBE, so this historical, political, ecological understanding, we could actually map and trace the different stories of multiple people, multiple stories of multiple actors, which provided multiple meanings to singular connotations. So that is why the plural is so important, in this historical understanding. And finally, HUBE is, I will say, it is not, we started with theoretical research, but now I think it is no more restricted to theoretical research, but it has now become a large-scale commitment. Because I think once we recognize the plural, then of course we feel the urge, we immediately become motivated to elicit the plural. So together, how everyone, policy makers, bureaucrats, technocrats, engineers, academicians, different sectors, and again academicians coming from different disciplines with history as the core, how we can actually craft a common language of conversation and start transcending our epistemological knowledge into into multiple axiologies, into action-based research and interventions. So, and these are all connected within the connected space. And we are now, what we are doing is that we are actually applying multinodal methodologies. So the project already, in its objective and methodology, it talked about augmented reality. So we already have this augmented reality app. We are planning to come up with a more, appropriate and inclusive website, which will be a two-way website. So people can also contribute, people also can assert their voices, they can make contributions, and it can be like, it can be based on a mutual traffic. So we are working on this. And I would again finally like to acknowledge ICHR, because with this revised duration, with this stretched duration now, so again, you'll be happy to know that we will again start working on this project. And now myself and my team, we have now got the opportunity in this revised program to actually collaborate with organizations like Living Water Museums and Immersive Trails, where so, and we will also now link this project with the other projects that we already have, where we are actually working on the lower other parts of the lower Ganga basin, other rivers like the Adi Ganga River. But all these rivers and the entire space and its riverine ecology is actually connected. So I think this river Hooghly, it is the river. This river has to be understood and perceived as the conduit of culture. And our research actually, which started since my PhD days, but then got geared up in the last few years through this HRC ICHR project on the Hooghly corridor. I think this research it will continue now for the next few years, maybe next few decades. And I don't think that there is at any point there is any time to kind of take a look back. We will be looking back because we will be definitely kind of focusing on our historical methodologies. We'll be looking back to look and move forward, but there will be no step back. And this research is just the beginning. It will go on and on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenia. It seems everybody must have really enjoyed your lecture. It was really eye-opening for many of us. Now I would like to invite a member secretary who will be chairing this session. He has always been a constant source of encouragement for all of us at ICHR and has really played a pivotal role in making it possible to reach out to the researchers at the time of pandemic through our online programs, which we keep on holding lectures, webinars. So I'm really, Ratnam sir has been kind of great encouragement for us. I request sir to please give his presidential remarks and invite questions.
Hello, Vinay.
Sir, unmute कर लीजिए sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for arranging such a wonderful presentation under ICHR and AHRC joint project. And I don't feel any need of the chair of the presidential remark on such a wonderful presentation. She has covered all the aspects of the empirical tour of the Hooghly River, Kolkata and Hooghly. I congratulate Dr. Johann Mukherjee for a really wonderful academic research-oriented presentation we have covered, and the tools which you used as the illustrations also you put there in the screen are very clear and prove that you and your team works a lot in this work on the topic particularly. And as you use the term river heritage, it is very important in the present days. It must be preserved. And you have also mentioned about the community identity. That must be also much focused. So far I feel. And I hope that your project you have taken up very seriously. But during this presentation, I felt there must be a more focus on that particular. Although you have covered all the aspects, architectures, canals, areas, economy, social aspects, historicity to the management of the strategy of the heritage management. So finally, I congratulate you for such a wonderful presentation of your entire team on behalf of ICHR and the members of the ICHR. Those are very much there on this screen. They are listening your views very seriously. I must say thanks and regard to all the honorable members of the council being here with us for this academic discourse. Thank you very much. And I again wish you a great success in your lab, Dr. Johann Rockstorm. Thank you.
Sir,
Over to Mukherjee.
sir, shall we invite some questions?
Of course, if there are any It must be before the anyway.
So if anybody has any question, please you can raise the hand. There's a option in the lower, of the computer screen of the computer, the bottom side. I kindly click on that, and you can always ask a question.
Ma'am, may I have a question, ma'am?
Yeah, sure, please.
I am Devra Chakraborty. Congratulations, Dr. Jenia, for this brilliant presentation. It is indeed that has been pointed out, Member Secretary Sir. Indeed, original piece of work, as you always do. I have a very specific query, rather, Jenia, that I would like to know from you. That you have mentioned that some official have been appointed in the colonial period for keeping record of the rivers that you mentioned. Uh, what was the basic perspective behind that? Whether it was only restricted to their economic pursuit or something else? Is it a part of the British colonial policy? As a young environmental historian and obviously my friend, Jenia, how would you interpret it?
So Dr. Singh and Chairperson said, should I take up this question first, or should?
As you wish, as you wish. You can collectively or one to one.
Please.
All right. Okay, thank you, Debraj, for asking this question. I think this is a very significant question, and if you see this particular period, in this period should, I think, as you also know, as historian who basically works in the medieval period, I think. If we just focus on Kolkata, then we'll not be able to answer this. Because you have rightly mentioned that why did the British colonizer actually, kind of ask Joseph Townsend to suddenly start, mapping and surveying this particular stretch. So it is evident that they were doing, or they were kind of engaged in this mapping operations for the entire stretch of the river. And if you see the stretch of the river, this is not only limited to Kolkata or the South 24 Parganas, or maybe a little upward to the Hooghly district, but also the river, it starts from the Malda district, just down the Rajmahal Hills, crosses Murshidabad, then goes through Nadia, and it covers several other districts. So what the British were doing, and this I had covered it in my book, which is Blue Infrastructures, which was published last year. And if you go through the second chapter of this book and the third section in the second chapter, I discussed in detail, the colonial logic behind mapping space, and here it is also evident that how the kind of boundaries between the urban and the non-urban, for that matter, the urban and the beyond urban counterpart also gets blurred and disrupted. So to make this long conversation short, what I would like to say is that it's political history and ecological history, social history, all these histories, multifaceted aspects, they are actually interrelated. This is one important message, one important argument which I would like to kind of emphasize upon in this particular discussion, that we have to understand a particular dynamics, or we have to study a particular phenomena by looking into the different tangled aspects that actually shape that particular phenomenon. So you have to see the political history of this period, where you will then understand that how the Britishers, they were also kind of continuously negotiating with the native ruler of Murshidabad, for that matter, for example, because they were quite entrepreneurial, and they were of course colonizers, so they were trying to have discussions and negotiations with many people, and they were not only thinking about Kolkata as the probable space, but before that they also had some discussions with the Nawab of Murshidabad. They had discussions with the the native powers in the Hooghly district itself, and some also you will find that this period also is kind of there are a whole lot of stories about conflicts and political turmoil between the Nawabs and the Britishers, and all these political turmoils also to an extent then kind of compelled the Britisher to come down to the downward reach and then see and do the mapping operations to finally figure out whether some kind of settlement would actually have been done in this space or not. And then they found out that yes, this space was actually loaded with lot of advantages apart from disadvantages. The disadvantages are of course there, swamps, marshes, saline water lakes, etc. But at the same time, they were facing a lot of political tussle with people, with the authorities in Murshidabad, with the Nawab in the Hooghly district, and several other things were going on. So that kind of prompted them to kind of, ask Joseph Townsend and the team to come here and start mapping operations. And this mapping operations is not new. You will see so many cartographers here. From Van den Bosch, though he's not a British, but then later he also, he was involved in some mapping operations with the other British colonizers. But we have several other, cartographers, including Renel, including so many other people, and also Macvick, who were kind of mapping the space to see whether the ecological disadvantages could have been outweighed by economic advantages or not.
Thank you. Many thanks. Again, I am enriched, Dr. Mukherjee. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? If anybody wants to ask the question, Dr. Ajay Kare, you sent a question, I think. You would like to ask Jenia, Dr. Jenia.
Thank you very much. I am just wondering that with the new word heritage scape, I am trying to understand that if there are so many words, why not we use the word cultural landscape as defined by UNESCO? So, and do you think that that will not fit into your heritage scape?
I think this is again very, very pertinent because, sir, you have actually caught me right. And this framework of heritage scape, to a great extent, it is influenced and inspired by UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage framework. And also, sir, if you see the diagram that we have come up with, the diagram is also, to a great extent, you can see the similarity between what UNESCO is trying to say and the way we have, kind of put the dots, because this, through the dots, we try to explain the intersections. We try to map the diverse nodes of, convergences. So yes, sir, absolutely. I think like UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage is a very significant emerging framework from where we have drawn a lot. And we also want to not only get informed from that, we already have been informed by this ICT framework of UNESCO, but what is good about this project and about our research is also that we are being able to not only get informed, but also inform to the UNESCO's framework. And that is where I think our empirical insights, are having sense.
So, are there any more questions? I think this is it for the question answer session. Thank you so much, Jenia. Dr. Jenia, thank you very much for your really very insightful lecture. Now I request Dr. Omji Upadhyay, Director Research and Administration, ICHR, to raise the
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. In fact, to discuss, am I audible?
Yeah, so you are.
Yeah. In fact, to discuss and understand the new findings on this very comparatively lesser explored but extremely relevant theme of what she has termed, Dr. Jenia has termed HUE, Historical Urban Political Ecology. ICHR organized this e-lecture. And I would say that Dr. Mukherjee has introduced HUE, that is Historical Urban Political Ecology, in a really excellent manner. And she has established the processes. I mean, she has just discussed the processes in the making and formation of urban nature in an excellent way. So, on behalf of the entire ICHR family, it's my sincere duty to thank Dr. Jenia Mukherjee, who has devoted her several years and put all her efforts to work on this project, which we have given in collaboration with ICHR, and her appreciable contribution to the field of historical research, especially in the fields of areas of environmental history, political ecology, and her PhD, which was based on some water bodies research, canals of Kolkata. So I thank her for this her enlightening lecture, and undoubtedly through this excellent presentation, Dr. Mukherjee had shared excellent thoughts as a breakthrough on this subject. I thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
On behalf of the entire ICHR family, I owe my heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Chair of this e-lecture, who is our guardian, our mentor, Professor Kumar Ratnanji, Member Secretary ICHR, for his guidance and all sorts of approvals, and sparing his valuable time for this program. Similarly, I express my gratitude to all the participants and active listeners who were actively engaged in this lecture and who made this event successful. I feel happy to offer my thanks to the excellencies present virtually on this platform, especially our honorable member, Professor C.I. Isaac sir, whom I can see on the screen from Kerala. Our honorable member, Professor Surjit Kaur Jolly ji, Honorable Professor Ajay Khare ji, Dr. Naushad Ali Sahab, Dr. Jyotsna Arora ji, our PDF Dr. Ratna Singh, Dr. Jyoti Sharma and Sri Muktinath Sarma from Northeastern Regional Center, Guwahati. I can see Dr. S.K. Aruni Sahab, who is our Regional Director, Southern Regional Center, Bangalore, and all other scholars who has devoted their valuable time for this program. At last, I'm very thankful to all the officers and employees of ICHR, especially Dr. Nupur Singh, who is unit in charge of cultural exchange programs, and the FTG, who took all the pains to make this e-lecture successful, and Dr. Saurabh Kumar Mishra and Sri Sekhar, who has for their excellent technical support. Thank you all who are virtually present over here, and with all your supports and blessings, we will definitely go a long way. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.